3 years ago, when I started my fitness journey, I knew nothing about fitness, but there was one decision that absolutely changed the trajectory of my fitness, and it was to constantly educate myself. I learned exactly how to get in shape. I learned about calories, about diet in general, about training, about recovery, and because of the fact that I'd implemented what I'd learned, I had gotten in shape. In this video, I will tell you exactly how you get in shape. I will go over a few concepts that by realizing, you will realize to a pretty good detail how the muscle building process occurs. And when you realize this process and you go and you implement it over and over again, you get into as good of a shape as you can. So before everything else, what is being in shape? Let's define terms. It is having a fairly low body fat percentage, 10 to 20, and a fairly high muscle mass. How high? As much as your genetics allows you to have. There are no exact numbers because of things like individual variations. Some people with certain amount of lean mass will have more muscle mass and less bone mass or whatever. It is essentially about having more muscle and less fat. And to control these two components, there are three main things that we need to focus on. They are diet, training, and recovery. In some way, all of these components together are intra-connected, and in these things there are a few key things that when doing consistently, getting jacked becomes pretty much inevitable. Now before I go over them, let's talk about the muscle building process. How muscle building occurs. It occurs through stimulus, muscle damage with that stimulus, and growth. There are essentially two steps to it. The first one is training. It is going and putting tension on the muscle with fairly high intensity for a few sets per workout, and by doing so we induce both muscle damage and hypertrophy. We essentially signal to our system that repair is needed and that it needs to go and repair that muscle, and because of that muscle protein synthesis occurs, and because of that muscle growth occurs. The marginal increase in muscle mass between before a workout and after a workout in a recovery phase is not that massive. It is not negligible, but it is pretty much negligible, right? It is very small, but the marginal increase between a few workouts, between weeks of working out, between months of working out is massive. It can be the difference between you jacked and you not. And that's the micro. The micro is one workout. It is going and training with sufficient intensity, with a good enough technique, for a few sets with enough volume for one time and 2 times and 3 times. The macro is doing it over weeks and months and seeing insane results. Now this is the first step. The second step is about recovery, and to recovery there are a few components. There is the rest component and there is the diet component. The rest component is about resting. It is about doing less. And what is the ultimate way of doing less? It is about sleeping. When we sleep, we recover essentially. Both the body and the mind recovers when sleeping. And that's the ultimate activity for recovery, along with stress management, that I won't be touching in this video because it is not quite as important as sleep. Now, there are extreme cases in stress when you are so stressed that recovery is not achieved even during sleep. You're just hyper stressed all of the times. That's an extreme case that can actually hinder muscle growth. But sleep in general, you should not neglect your sleep. It is the most important part of the muscle building process outside of training, eating the right calorie balance and protein. And then there is diet. In diet, there are a bunch of components that can contribute to muscle growth. Things like macronutrients, eating enough of them, calories, proteins, carbs, fats. But when it comes to these components, there are a few components that are more important than the other ones. These are the component of protein and the component of calories. If you consume your calories based on your goals and you eat protein sources that are pretty high quality, like chicken breast, like animal meat in general, and eggs, these sources of protein, you get your protein from them, and you get enough protein per day, 1 gram per pound of body weight, a bit less, a bit more, doesn't matter, then this is the box when it comes to that. These are the things that when keeping in mind, you get around 80 to 70 to 60% of the benefit of a diet. Of course, if you're extremely deficient in other macronutrient or extremely deficient in micronutrients, in some of them, you will see suboptimal progress when it comes to muscle gain. Of course, but in general, just by getting enough calories and protein from a high quality sources, you will tick the other boxes off as a result. You will get enough micronutrients. You might not get enough carbs or fats, but that's negligible. Not to the greatest extent, you will see less results, right? But not a massive, but you will not see a massive reduction in results that is as big as the reduction in results when eating less protein and calories than you need. So essentially, by going and training, putting stimulus on the muscles that you want to grow, doing it for a few sets to put enough volume on them, because volume increase and muscle gain up to a certain point. This point doesn't matter for this video. And then recovering afterwards, going and sleeping, eating enough calories for recovery, and eating enough protein, you will see an increase in muscle mass, but not a massive one, because you can't build so much muscle after one training session. But then after going through this process for weeks and months and years, you will completely transform your body. You will get jacked. Now, of course, there is the degree of genetic variation. You might not be able to get as jacked as me because of your genetics. You might not be able to get as jacked as that guy because of his genetics, but you will fulfill your genetic potential for building muscle. And after building a lot of muscle, as much muscle as you can, there is one last step to getting jacked, and it is losing body fat. Losing body fat is about eating on a calorie deficit and enough protein. Now, I don't want to sit here and just convince you, bro. If you eat less calories than you burn, you lose weight. Calories do matter. Because I assume that you know this shit. It is pretty basic. A calorie is a metric for energy. When you supply your body less energy than it needs to maintain its body weight, to maintain its weight will go down. Usually in the form of fat. If you train consistently and eat enough protein and sleep enough, it will go down in the form of fat. I could sit here and reference and talk about a bunch of studies that say that when you don't eat enough protein, when you don't sleep enough, there is a higher degree of reduction in muscle mass. But that's, I think, pretty obvious. I might reference these studies in the description, just so you believe me. And after losing enough weight over weeks and months, after eating in a moderate to low deficit of 250 to 500 calories, eating more low-calorie dense food, so you will have an easier time being on this deficit, enough protein and training enough, delivering sufficient stimulus to maintain that muscle mass or even increase it. In some cases it is possible. You will get jacked, you will lose that excess body fat, and you will have a lot of muscle mass, and you will also have a low amount of body fat with it. You will be jacked. And that's essentially how you get in shape. If you want to get a full in-depth course about how to get in shape, you can check out the link in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe. Bye.